Hey everyone, welcome to the next chapter in this Getting Started with KotORjs series. So first off, we're going to go open our browser and we're going to navigate to github.com/cobaltblue/KotORjs. So this is the repository for the project itself. There's a lot of useful information here along with a README that you can go through. There's a few guides as far as some pitfalls with some different web browsers if you're trying to use those, and just getting started with the overall project, how to download, how to run and build the project, and things like that. So first off, what we're going to do is we're going to scroll up to the top here. We're going to go to code. We're going to download the zip file. If you're using Git, you can also download the files that way by just cloning the repo locally on your machine if you're familiar with that. So now that we have the files downloaded onto our PC, we can open up the zip file like this, and we can copy the folder inside into some other folder on our computer, wherever you'd like to put those files. Just copy those over. We'll wait for this to finish copying. Now that the files are downloaded, I'm going to rename this folder by clicking on it, moving this, and just being left with KotOR.js. So now, get rid of this. If we look inside of the folder here, we can see that everything we have is the source code for the actual project itself. What is missing, though, is all of the node dependencies that are required to actually run the project and compile it. So one of the first things that we're going to need to get started is to get a copy of Node.js downloaded and installed on our system. So if you don't already have a copy, go over to nodejs.org, click on Get Node.js, and find the correct installer for your system and environment. So I'm just going to grab this Windows installer and download it on my machine. You should be good to run with most of the default configuration in this installer. If you want to do something more custom, you can look through the documentation for Node and decide which you want to choose and which you might want to opt out of or opt into. So one of the things we're going to need is some sort of a code editor. If you don't already have your favorite one installed, a very popular option is Visual Studio Code. So let's go ahead and grab that. So let's go ahead and go to the Download Visual Studio Code section. Find the binary that's applicable to your system. We're going to download this and run it. I'm going to turn on some of my favorite options here. So we're not going to choose this option right now. We'll do this later. So you can close out the browser now. And let's go to our coding projects, KotORjs. And now we can right-click on our folder. If you chose the Open with Code option when you installed it, you can now right-click on this folder and click Open with Code. So now that you have your code editor of choice installed and running, you have Node installed, the next thing you need to do is go over to the extensions in VS Code. If you're not using something like VS Code or Cursor, to follow along with this step, you'll need to use some other tool to run some sort of a lightweight web server pointed to the dist folder that we're about to create when we compile. But if you're using VS Code, this is a very simple way to have a lightweight web server running so that we can test the game in the browser. So I'm just going to install this real quick. So now that it's installed, you see we have this Go Live button down here at the bottom. We'll come back to that in a minute, but for now, let's close out of this. Let's go back to Explorer. So one thing I want to point out at the very beginning here, if you open up the VS Code folder, which comes with the repo when you download it, there is a settings.json file. We have pre-populated some variables here that will help the live server extension run better with this deployment that we're going to make. So it targets port 8080. It looks for the dist folder that will be created when we compile, and it sets the host to localhost. Now to go further, let's open up a terminal window by going to Terminal, New Terminal. So the first thing that we need to do with a clean project is run npm install. npm is bundled with node, it will look at our package.json file and go and pull in every dependency that this project requires to run. So now that that's complete, let's clear our terminal by typing in clear. And we want to use webpack dev watch. So the differences between the webpack dev watch, the only difference is that when you're running in dev watch, it is looking at your source files, and as you change something and save it in the code editor, the code will hot recompile in real time, and then you'll get the benefit with the live server that the browser window that you're running will stay in sync with the current build of the code. So let's run that right now. npm run webpack dev watch. Great. So now the project's compiled. The only other thing we have to do now is come down to the Go Live extension, click on that, and it will boot up a Chrome window for us that is pointing to this new dist folder that got built when we compiled. And this is it. This is KotORjs. So the main thing we see here at the very beginning is the launcher. This is a handy way to navigate between the various different applications within the project. We have 2 games here that are supported, KotOR 1 and KotOR 2. We also have a modding suite that is a work in progress that you can open and view and edit some of the game files that are found within the 2 games. So for now, let's go to KotOR. Let's hit play. So now the first thing we have to do when we launch the project for the first time within the browser is we have to give access to our game folder. So let's click grant access. And you can see I'm already navigated to my game's install directory here. The project does require you to bring your own files. We do not publish any files with the project that you would need to run the game. Those are all need to be provided by you. So if you navigate to this folder, and if this is the one, then you click select folder. You want to tell Chrome how you want it to behave, what you're comfortable with. So you can do allow this time, allow on every visit, or don't allow if you choose you don't want to give access. But for the game to run, you're going to need to grant access to this folder. So I'm just going to click allow on every visit. Now we're going to boot up. It's going to cache some files to start the game. Playing the intro movies, we can click through these. So right now you're not hearing any sound. That's because I've booted this up in a previous test and I turned my sound down. Generally, I run with no sound when I'm developing because a lot of times the volume can get the audio can be very tedious when you're coming in and out, refreshing multiple times. You're hearing the same sound effects over and over again. So it does run, it is here, but for my sanity, I usually keep this off. So I'm going to go through and turn these down. Like so, hit close. All right, so now let's just load up a game save. So let's go to load game. I do have some saves in my current installed directory already. So we support most of what I would consider most of the values you need to run a save. Saving, on the other hand, is still a work in progress. There's a lot of work that needs to be done there to make completely vanilla compatible saves, but you can load in vanilla game saves. So let's load in this one here. And there you go. Now we are in game, running around the apartment on Terrace. So that was a quick introductory to getting started with KotORjs, how to get the game built, running in your web browser.